Kenya has been gripped by a historic wave of protests since mid-2024, marking one of the most intense periods of civil unrest in its recent history. These demonstrations have largely been driven by frustration over economic hardships, controversial government policies, police brutality, and a growing sense of political disillusionment, especially among the youth. The protests erupted into national and global attention in June 2024 when the Kenyan government introduced the Finance Bill 2024, which included proposals to increase taxes on everyday essentials such as bread, cooking oil, sanitary products, mobile money transactions, and motor vehicle ownership. Many Kenyans, already burdened by a struggling economy and high cost of living, viewed the bill as insensitive and exploitative. What started as peaceful opposition turned into a powerful youth-led movement dubbed 7 Days of Rage, largely organized online by Gen Z activists using social media platforms like TikTok and Twitter, X. The protests intensified on June 25, 2024, when demonstrators broke through police barricades and stormed the Kenyan Parliament in Nairobi. This marked a historic moment. Never before had civilians entered Parliament during a live session in such a manner. The police responded with tear gas, rubber bullets, and live ammunition. Over 19 people were reported killed that day, with some human rights organizations estimating the death toll to be as high as 60. In addition to the killings, there were dozens of forced disappearances and abductions reported across the country. Protesters, activists, and even ordinary citizens were allegedly kidnapped by security forces, held in undisclosed locations, or tortured. Despite the crackdown, the public outcry grew louder, eventually forcing President William Ruto to withdraw the bill. However, the withdrawal did not put an end to the protests. Instead, it sparked a broader movement demanding justice for the victims and an end to government repression. A year later, on June 25, 2025, nationwide commemorations were held to honor those who lost their lives during the 2024 protests. The demonstrations took place in over 23 counties, including major cities like Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, Nakuru, Nyeri, and Eldoret. Protesters lit bonfires, held silent marches, and carried placards with names and faces of those killed or missing. The government again responded with force, deploying heavily armed police units who used tear gas, water cannons, and live rounds to disperse crowds. At least 16 people were confirmed dead during these commemorations, with hundreds injured. Several rights groups, including Human Rights Watch, condemned the violence, calling on the government to uphold freedom of assembly and expression. Adding to the chaos, the Communications Authority of Kenya imposed a media blackout, directing all broadcasters to suspend live coverage of the events. Social media was also throttled, but activists continued to share footage and updates using VPNs and encrypted messaging apps. The unrest in Kenya has not only been about the finance bill or anniversaries. It reflects a deeper national frustration with systemic corruption, unemployment, youth exclusion, and state violence. In June 2025, shortly before the commemoration protests, the death of a popular blogger, Albert Omondio Ojwang, in police custody sparked another wave of demonstrations. He had been arrested under unclear circumstances and died within 24 hours, reportedly due to torture. The outrage over his death reignited public anger, leading to fresh street protests in Kisumu and Nairobi. Just days later, another man, Boniface Kariuki, a street vendor who joined the protests, was shot at close range by police officers in Nairobi's CBD. He later succumbed to his injuries. His death became a new symbol of police brutality, leading to calls for the arrest of the officers involved, two of whom were eventually detained and charged. Throughout this period, digital activism has been a powerful force. Kenyan youth have used hashtags like #RejectFinanceBill, #JusticeForOurMashujaa, and #EndPoliceBrutalityCo to organize, educate, and mobilize. Short videos, AI-generated memes, posters, and protest art spread rapidly online, often faster than the government could censor. Despite internet blackouts and state surveillance, this digital resistance has created a strong sense of unity and defiance. Even in the face of arrests, abductions, and threats, the youth have continued to demand reforms, accountability, and justice for those lost. As of mid-2025, over 26 people remain missing, with families searching for loved ones who were reportedly taken by state agents during the protests. High-profile figures have not been spared either. In a shocking twist, Attorney General Justin Muturi's son was allegedly abducted and only released after intense pressure and presidential intervention. These patterns point to a disturbing trend of authoritarian practices returning under the guise of maintaining order. The protests in Kenya are no longer isolated events. They're part of a wider awakening, especially among young people, demanding a fairer, freer, and more just society. Whether the government will listen remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: a generation has risen, and it refuses to be silenced.